Dr. Abhishek Nagaraj is an entrepreneur with a deep calling for dentistry. He helps mentor and develop his associate doctors into super GPs by removing barriers to their success and empowering them to become elite clinicians. He envisions a world where dentists are in charge of their own destiny, which I'm excited to ask him about. He works with seasoned practice owners to help optimize their practices and become more profitable, as well as creating cultural and financial alignment to help their practices grow. We're also joined by Dr. Anushka Gaglani, who is a co-founder and co-CEO with him of Aero Dental Group. Under her leadership, Aero Dental Group has been on the Inc. 5000 list 3 years in a row with almost 100% growth. She believes in extensive continuing education for all dentists and their teams. She especially has a passion for helping female dentists grow and prosper as clinicians. She's active in Entrepreneurs Organization and a member of Strategic Coach. Dr. Raj, Dr. Gaglani, welcome to the next level.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
So excited to get into it. And I just want to, right off the top, we have had some great conversations with husband and wife partners in business. And we've had some great conversations with co-CEO partners in business. But I think this is the first time we're having the co-CEO and husband-wife team. And I think it's awesome. So I want to learn more about that. I want to dig into that because whether or not we work with our spouses in our business or we all are going to some degree share leadership with other people in our business, what have you learned from this partnership that might help other entrepreneurs?
I'll take that. We didn't set out to be co-CEOs in the business. We set out as just two people who, felt for each other. Probably I pursued her a lot harder than I was lucky enough that she said yes 18 years ago. And, long story short, we both went to dental school. I came as an immigrant in 2011 to New York, went to NYU. And Anushka had been practicing as a dentist for a few years because she went to UIC. And when I graduated in 2014, we came together. I worked with somebody else for a year. It wasn't our vision, and we wanted to go and start something that was undiluted, but that was purely ours. And that had a big vision to what we wanted to do. And that's really kind of how we set out. The funny part of this is Anushka and I always had complementary skills. Naturally, I gravitated towards certain things and she gravitated towards the opposite of that. And somehow we got shit done together. That's kind of how we evolved over time. And then as the company started growing, we realized we had to give it a structure. And the rest is kind of, I'm happy to share as we dive in. Anushka, I don't know what you want to add to that.
I think that was a great synopsis. That's exactly right. We did our Colbys and we are literally opposites of the spectrum. So things just get done. It's worked out really well.
Well, I invited you guys here apart for many reasons. One, I love you guys so much. But one thing I've really appreciated, and I appreciate you guys talking about this subject, is because it's real. So I've had the privilege of spending time with both of you. And I know a lot of couples and I know a lot of entrepreneurial couples, and you guys in my book are amongst the highest performing in not just business, but as a couple and being rich in life. And so I appreciate it. I'm curious though, how that, I know there had to be some friction there. So let's talk about that and how you guys came to some of those realizations and moved that forward.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a great point. I think one of the things is we met, I think Abhishek told you, when we were 18. So a lot of our friction happened as teenagers in our early 20s. We kind of got through that. We got that out of the way a little bit earlier on. So that really helped. The second piece, I think, is, we're very aligned, our family values, the way we were raised, all of that really just kind of seemed to align. So what we want out of life is very, very similar. And it's always been kind of similar. I think the piece where I see, you had mentioned it earlier, is one person will want to grow in one aspect. They'll really want to focus on the business, and the other person may want to not focus as much on the business. For us, we kind of both aligned on we really, really enjoy the business. And I think that's where we got lucky. I don't know that really took alignment. We just got lucky that we're both really interested in that as well. But doing training together, going to strategic coach together, being an EO together, we made a commitment that we're both going to grow together. So one person, again, the mindset doesn't get left behind or different.
Yeah, and if I can add some color to that, I think early on to Anushka's point, when we started dating like 18, 19 years ago, we had to quickly navigate some of our differences in order to find common path and common goals. We shared because as Anushka rightly pointed out, we have similar backgrounds. We both realized without ever having talked to each other about it that we had this like vision of life that we wanted. And when we actually talked about it, we were like, holy cow, that is similar. So similar to what we both want individually. So we had to really navigate and find ourselves first. And I think, Stephen, to your point, that's probably where some of the differences creep in early on, right? As you're trying to find yourself. And as you realize that you're not as great as you thought you were, and then coming to that realization and keeping grounded about that and being real with each other, right? That means some arguments and some blow ups, but also coming to the other side of it and understanding that this is really this is the person that I would need to lean on in order to keep me grounded and humble. I think we've had our good share of that early on.
I love that. Tell me about also like when you think about you're sharing an entire life together, you're growing. Growth requires there's a strain and pressure sometimes when you're really trying to push things, but those don't all happen in a pretty order. Sometimes you're feeling a lot of strain at home and you're feeling a lot in the business. I'm curious how, and at least my experience with Corey, we're not always experiencing those in the same way at the same time. So I'm just curious how you guys think through that, give grace. Are there any things that you guys do as a best practice to stay healthy?
I think alignment was huge for us. How we got aligned, I think, is the bigger question here. One of the ways we got aligned was we started doing things together, right? Just so one of them wasn't growing faster than the other. I think EOS was a big part of that in the business, right? A lot of probably our strain came from taking some of the stuff that happened at the business, taking it home and talking about it at 9:30 at night. We all know what happens after that, right? When you're tired, you're exhausted. I think we realized that we needed a structure. I think being on EOS, being in strategic coach, having been coached by you, realizing there are really free days and platinum free days and buffer days and how we can start to segregate some of this stuff. Doesn't mean 7 days we have to be on and talking about the business. That doesn't necessarily make us great business people to start with. Coming to that realization really helped us navigate, and then putting boundaries around things. I think I always struggled putting boundaries, right? And I think I learned a great deal from Anushka, actually, is how do we set boundaries around things that we want and what we don't want? That would be my 2 cents on that. What would you want to add to that?
I totally agree with that. For us, it was kind of funny because we talk about this all the time, internal, external processors. I'm very much an internal processor. So at a certain time of night, I shut down. I am a pumpkin. Do not reach out to me. Don't talk to me, out of office, right? And then in the morning, I'm back to it. Abhishek, meanwhile, was a little more of a night owl. That's changed a little bit over the years, but he could keep talking till 10:30. And suddenly at like 10 o'clock, when I'm ready to wind down, he would turn to me and be like, what do you think of adding this benefit? And I'm like, we had friction with that stuff, right? I was like, you have to stop. And that's where we really had to align. So, we kind of take those free days. For us, it's like the weekends. Once in a while, being business owners, things happen, right? We're in healthcare Saturdays. Sometimes we have to answer questions. But for the most part, we try to keep that boundary between us because we realize that though we're business partners, we're also married. So we have to give ourselves time for that as well. And then some of our really good time together that I really value is in the morning. Every morning we go for a 3 to 5 mile walk. And that's kind of being in nature. That's where we really talk about all of our ideas and we can start off the day really, really well.
And Stephen, also, I want to give credit to you and your team at Strategic Coach. When we started, you guys introduced us to taking a Colby we kind of realized and embraced ourselves, right? I understood why I was a quick start and I was great at starting things, but I couldn't always see things through. And Anushka was always great at seeing things through, but maybe relied on me to start things a little faster than she did. I think just coming to that realization immediately reduced friction to understand that this is how we're wired and this is why I do what I do and why she does what she does. So that was super cool.
Definitely.
Super cool.
I want to dig in a little bit more, and I want to talk about the business and get it more into that. But this is just such an interesting dynamic here. Entrepreneurship are not well known for their high quality of mental health, right? You've got higher incidence of depression and other sort of mental health issues reported by entrepreneurs, and then similarly, in dentistry, it's not exactly considered the most friendly to mental health either, right? And so you guys have managed to maybe multiply that by combining sort of the natural entrepreneurship that comes with dentistry, but also really being intentional about running your business as a business rather than an individual practice, it sounds like. So I just wanted to explore that a little bit too. Is that something that you find can creep into the relationship, the sort of natural highs and lows of entrepreneurship, the sort of natural highs and lows of dentistry, which I can't speak from experience, but I had a dentist in my EO forum, and he was very open in and outside of forum about that. Is that something that you all have experienced and that you've taken sort of thoughtful steps to make sure that you're staying ahead of?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think there definitely is a psychological price to entrepreneurship, right? And that combined, like you said, with being a dentist, dentists are actually not number one. It's actually like number 4 or 5 on the list. But being a high pressure job, I read something somewhere. It was like a meme that said, dentists, you have 20 meetings a day, and you have to have all these deliverables, and everything has to be perfect, 100% on time, and people don't cut you a whole lot of slack. So we've been there, done that. I think the culmination of that really was 2019 for us. We were producing most of the revenue. We were doing all the hiring, letting go of all the people, having everything was falling on our shoulders on top of practicing. So that was probably our low. We both kind of went through that. But then coming into 2020, of course, March, great timing, is when we joined EO. And that really helped because we kind of saw that we're not alone in this. There are a lot of other entrepreneurs kind of going through similar things. And that really helped. And I think the second piece that helped us was getting great team members. We have an awesome VP of Ops. And she really helped us, kind of own the business alongside us. She's rowing in the same direction as us. And because of her, the other team members are also aligning. So it helps us feel like people have our back. And that's really kind of what helped me personally deal with that struggle.
Yeah, I think we all know that we're the average of the 5 people we surround ourselves with, right? We surrounded ourselves in the beginning of our journeys with other dentists who were equally stressed, if not more. And we thought that was the norm, right? So, and then we would come home and talk shit about life and dentistry and how people are so mean to us, right? Dentists have this thing called approval rejection. We dentists face that. All of us face that. We want to please people, and expectations are immense from dentists. And it's one of the reasons why we can coach up dentists. I think shifting mindsets is the number one thing we do with dentists, and not needing approval rejection, that you are good enough. Right? We suffer from a good amount of imposter syndrome as dentists and as entrepreneurs too. So dealing with some of those things, but also I think it helped that we were both dentists, because the lens that you use as a dentist, especially when it's not your patient, is more objective than when it is your patient. So when she came in with a problem patient, I could objectively take a view at that, and she could do the same for me. And same with the team members too. When people were being quote unquote unreasonable, we could each reason with each other saying, maybe that isn't so unreasonable. And we've learned from a good amount of unreasonable employees as much as we have from reasonable employees.
Yeah. And so I love mindset shifts anytime that you can give. And I think, all of us in this conversation recognize the power that Strategic Coach has so many mindset shifts that they're so good at, right? it makes you come back for more. But imposter syndrome is definitely a big part of the entrepreneurial journey, right? I don't know any entrepreneur who hasn't felt that at some point. What have you found to be effective in beginning to reframe how you think about approval? That's a really interesting point about your industry, but I think, like you were saying, it has much broader applicability.
You want to take that?
Yeah, for me, I think it's just being very certain and being sure of who we are, not being insecure about, what we have to offer to the world and what we're doing. I know that every day, whatever I do, I can sleep very well at night because I know I've done the right thing. And I think the other thing is really deriving your energy or your self-worth from the people who really matter to you. For me, one of the things I read, and I can't remember the exact quote, but it's something around, don't let somebody who has a nosebleeder seat have a front row opinion, something around that, right? So it's like the people that kind of know superficially who you are, I don't allow their opinions to really affect me. It's the people who really know me. Those are the people whose opinions, if Abhishek came to me and said, hey, I think you really messed this conversation up, or I think you could have done this better, I'm going to take that seriously because he knows the person I am. And I could have done better in that. But if it's some random person, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter to me. So that's how I dealt with the approval rejection.
Yeah, and I can add to that. I think, Reid Hoffman from LinkedIn has a really good quote, right? He said you can be loved by 5 people or you can be liked by 100, but when those 5 people love you and respect you, you created a bigger impact because they'll go tell 500 other people, right? I really like that. And I also think my other favorite saying, I think it's probably from Buddha. Our mind is like a parachute. It only works when it's open, right? So I think having honest conversations with some of our doctors, to your point, about creating some of those mindset shifts and saying you have to open your mind because what you don't know, and what got you here doesn't get you there, but actually keeps you here and it doesn't serve you, right? What I learned yesterday actually doesn't serve us anymore. So it's a lot of those hard conversations that new dentists have just literally never had with anybody, right? But that's a part of our onboarding process for 3 weeks. They don't touch patients. We only talk about mindsets. We only onboard them on habits, and then they go see live patients.
What's so cool to me about that is that, this is, if I'm not mistaken, this is your journey, right? I mean, like there was quite a bit of shift. Can you talk a little bit about like the shift from practitioner to business owner and now like how you're paying that forward? Because I think that's really cool.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, we didn't set out, at least I didn't set out to own multiple practices and have this big vision. It was, I'm a dentist, yay, go me. And, go practice, go have one practice and, be this awesome, like the best practitioner I can be. And somewhere along the way, our minds opened up. We met more people who were doing things that were like, wow, this is really cool. And I never even considered that. And we had to make the decision. We were actually still practicing full time until the end of 2022. December 2022 is when we decided to cut back. And now we're each in the chair seeing patients 1 day a week. Because we really had to make that decision. Are we going to be dentists or are we going to be business owners? And I think we have the best of both worlds because we're dentists who've practiced for a long time. And now we get to be those business owners. One of the things we tell our new dentists too is in dental school, I have a love-hate relationship. I'm very grateful to dental schools for helping me get my degree, but they have no problem charging you $500,000-$600,000 to get that degree. But how dare you pay it off? How dare you tell a patient that they need XYZ and get that treatment done? That's where we have that mindset shift with our dentists is, hey, you're not doing anything wrong by telling a patient what they need. You didn't put that there, right? So feel comfortable in letting them know what they need. You'd never hear, dentists are great at saying things like, you have a little cavity. What does that even mean? It's kind of like, it's like going to an oncologist and they go, you have a little cancer. You're never going to hear that, right? So that's kind of where we reframe their mindset as well.
Absolutely. Love that.
So funny.
That's so good. And that's the perfect segue into in the introduction. I think it was, Abhishek, it was yours. You said you envisioned a world where dentists were in charge of their own destiny. What does that mean? How are dentists not in charge of their own destiny right now?
That's a really good question. I think there's a lot of consolidation in dentistry, right? Dentistry it's still fairly fragmented, right? The market penetrations right now is about 40%. In about 10 years, it'll be 75%. So what happens from the time dentists go to dental school where they see 2 patients a day with adult supervision to being thrown into these corporate dentistry, big, large groups with zero mentorship? Mentorship is a buzzword. They all say it, but they don't get it. And now they're going and seeing 20 patients or 30 patients a day. It is a recipe for disaster, right? Care suffers. Patients suffer because of this, because there's a huge gap in the middle, right? One of the things we want to empower our dentists to do is to really create those mindset shifts early on, where they don't have to go through 3 to 5 years of pain and suffering and then have these epiphanies and aha moments, right? I think that's a big piece of creating that shift and empowering dentists. And also, I think a lot of time we're doing acquisitions, right? A lot of times practice owners have practiced a certain way for 15 to 20 years. And a lot of times their practices are held hostage by their teams, and they had no idea how to deal with that. When we kind of do the acquisition, we take a true partnership model and we empower the practice owner to go have some hard conversations with the dentist, because now they have us to support them. And we're going to recruit. I think dentists get so burned out practicing 5 days in the chair and not being able to recruit people, that they get so afraid that they will lose people and they will be left with nobody. And when we take over an acquisition or do an acquisition, the partnership model would be, hey, saying, go have this conversation. If something goes sideways, we've got your back. That's really what we do. And we've done that successfully about 5 times now. And it's really cool to see how some of our dentists that we acquired, our partners, have really get their chest all puffed up. And really you can see them breathing a sigh of relief after like 15 years. That it's super neat to see that.
That's so cool. I can't tell you the number of times I've seen, in my prior world with insurance, when we were buying insurance agencies, where I really believe people sold their agency because of that one person or 2 person they just didn't know how to deal with.
Yeah.
They just lost hope, didn't know how to operate. So cool.
Thank you. Yeah, it's really cool.
I want to touch on one thing that is sort of a different direction, but it stood out to me in doing some of the reading about your backgrounds. I feel like I'm a kindred spirit in wanting less clutter in my life. I think, I can't think very well if my space is disorganized. I feel when things are out of place. So what have you learned about organization and decluttering your physical space that has led to a less cluttered mind?
Anushka, you should definitely take this.
So I'm the person.
Yeah,
I'm definitely the person who goes around, like I get into these rampages and I'm just like, let's get rid of everything. I think at one point, Abhishek's going to come home, we won't even have furniture. But even in the practices, right? We're always like, organize your emails, clean everything up. For me in particular, and I know not everybody functions this way, but for me in particular, having an uncluttered space really helps me organize my own mind. In fact, one of the things that I did, I was so passionate about this, is a few years ago, I had this idea for a children's book called The House That Threw Up. And it's literally about a house that gets so cluttered that it says, I'm done. And it just, it throws everything up.
It's amazing.
Sorry, go ahead.
That's amazing. Tell us about, I want to hear more about this. This is great.
Yeah, very, very simple story. Kids keep collecting toys and the house is like, I'm getting too full. And it just finally gives up and everything goes and the kids are like, I'm so sorry, and let go. They kind of donate everything. But yeah, that's just kind of where I function best is not having that cluttered space.
And I think that's a really good question, Ryan. I think between us, I was definitely the pig of the relationship when we started out, and it's really helped me declutter my mind. I think you're so right. Having a good physical, our off practices are similar, right? Very minimal. Sometimes we have new team members we onboard come and clutter, and like the first thing we do is say, "Hey, we don't do that here," right? And we don't put stuff on the walls like unless one of us really approves it. And it really helped to put things in perspective because this is a place of business, but people come and see. And if the first thing they see is clutter, that's your reputation. But at the same time, it helps us really feel like everything is in control, right? Like, I think we all know about that. You guys are entrepreneurs. We want to feel like we're in control. So it's been great. I think Anushka has been a really good influence for me too. To a point where I come home and I see dust on the glass tables and I crazily start wiping it. I wasn't that guy at all. Right? So it's good stuff.
This doesn't sound very good. It sounds like I made you OCD.
I think that's why
Ryan,
we call
you
them
still
our
got
better
your work
half.
cut out for you. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's fantastic. Well, thank you both so much. This has been absolutely fascinating. And I just had a few takeaways that stood out to me. I really loved the conversation that we had at the beginning about getting aligned by starting to do things together. I think that is so powerful. I think alignment often evokes these, sort of notions of conversations and plans together and ideas, but the doing things together is that act is an alignment activity as well. So EOS, Entrepreneurs Organization Coach. And then having structure that you were both invested in was a key way to maintaining that alignment, which is, again, it's a doing, it's not just a talking, right? And that was in the business, form, but it showed up in the, taking your daily walk together, right? It's another physical way that you're manifesting this alignment, which I thought was really cool. Being sure of who you are to overcome that imposter syndrome and not letting your self-worth be defined by people who don't know you, I think is really powerful. And our mind is like a parachute. It only works when it's open. I'm crediting you with that quote. It's the first I'd heard of it. And then decluttering your space declutters your mind. I thought there's such a wide-ranging conversation. It was really inspiring to talk to both of you and hear about your journey. So thank you for sharing that with us.
Thank you guys so much.
We appreciate your time.
It's been our pleasure. It was so much fun talking to you guys.
Yeah.
Well, for those that want to learn more, like where can they learn more about you guys?
You can find us on LinkedIn, Anushka Gaglani and Abhishek Nagaraj. We're on Instagram. We're still kind of building that a little bit. I'm Dr. _ontoothpreneur.
And I'm Dr.
Oh, that's good.
I'm Dr. Dentagram. And then our website is www.areodental.com. We're pretty responsive. Anybody can reach out to us. We have a contact form there. And would love to hear from people.
Love it.
Awesome. And we'll drop it in the show notes as well, so people can tap the link. So Abhishek, Anushka, thank you so much for joining us again on The Next Level. We really appreciated it.
Love you guys. Thank you.
Love you guys too. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
See you.